This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.
.45, this is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The news edited by Lal Mallavarachi, read by Soundi Thavam. The vote on the third reading of the appropriation bill will be held today. An injunction order was issued preventing the holding of demonstrations near Parliament. Sri Lanka scraps COVID vaccination negative test requirement on overseas arrivals. Sri Lanka and Singapore discuss early implementation of the free trade agreement. The CEB to issue paperless bills, receipts from January 2023. A 4-year plan to generate 70% of the national electricity requirement from renewable energy. The US hands over 9,300 tons of urea fertilizer to be distributed among 193,000 smallholder paddy farmers. In news overseas, Putin says nuclear risk is rising, but Russia would not use its nuclear weapons first. In sports, Zimbabwe cricket launches 6-team T10 tournament in March 2023. The vote on the third reading of the appropriation bill will be held in the House today at 5 p.m. It has been decided to present the order mentioned in Gazette number 2308/62 dated 3rd December 2022 under the Essential Public Service Act number 61 of 1979 published by the President for approval today. The Secretary-General of Parliament, Dhammika Dasanayake, said the Committee on Parliamentary Business has decided that the Parliament will meet on Tuesday the 13th instead of next Saturday the 10th. Earlier, it was decided to hold Parliament sittings on the 10th and the entire day was reserved for questions and oral answers. Accordingly, the entire day of Tuesday the 13th has been reserved for questions and oral answers. The Secretary-General of Parliament said the next sitting of Parliament will be on the 17th of January 2023. The Colombo Additional Magistrate Hashana Kakunavala yesterday issued an injunction order preventing the holding of demonstrations that would violate the privileges of parliamentarians by blocking the road leading to Parliament and the surrounding roads. The order was issued to Duminda Nagamua, the Secretary of the Centre for Labour Struggle, and Joseph Starling, the Secretary of the Ceylon Teachers Union. The magistrate issued this order after being satisfied with the submissions made by the Valikada police to the court. The order was made preventing the blocking of the main road of Sri Javadapura Kotte from near the Samanala Bridge to Parliament via the Polduwa Junction. The mandatory requirement to produce a COVID-19 vaccination certificate on entry to Sri Lanka has been lifted with effect from yesterday. Further, all overseas arrivals are no longer required to produce a negative PCR or rapid antigen test (RAT) done either prior to boarding or on arrival, the Director General of Health Services, Dr. Asela Gunawardena, stated. In the event a foreign national tests positive for COVID-19 during their stay in Sri Lanka, they will be required to self-isolate for a period of 7 days at their residence, a private hospital or a hotel and bear all related costs, he added. Sri Lanka mandated the carrying out of a negative COVID-19 test and proof of vaccination when it opened its borders to foreign nationals arriving amidst the COVID crisis in 2021. You're listening to the news from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.
People's Bank Excelsior. Live the life you want.
The State Minister of Foreign Affairs, Tharaka Balasuria, who was on a short transit visit to Singapore yesterday, met with Singapore's Senior Minister of State and Foreign Affairs, Sim Ann, the High Commissioner of Sri Lanka, in Singapore said. During the meeting, the two ministers held wide-ranging discussions on augmenting bilateral relations with a specific focus on trade and investment cooperation between the two countries. In particular, Minister Balasuria highlighted the intention of President Ranil Wickremesinghe to take measures to implement the Sri Lanka-Singapore Free Trade Agreement early. The Sri Lankan minister also met with Senior Minister of State Dr. Janil Puducherry and discussed additional employment opportunities for Sri Lankans in the healthcare sector and cooperation between the two sides on the information technology sphere. The Minister of Power and Energy, Kanchana Wijesekara, says the Ceylon Electricity Board, CEB, has been directed to issue paperless bills and receipts to all customers with effect from January 2023. Instructions were given during a discussion with the CEB's management. The minister has discussed the steps taken to reduce expenses and further measures that could be taken to reduce the costs at the CEB. Minister Wijesekara also gave directives to the CEB officials to hold the ongoing construction work of the CEB's new headquarters. He further stated that a decision was taken to regulate the fixing of street lamps and operating street lamps. Under the directives of Minister Wijesekara, it was also decided that outsourced services be carried out using the existing staff members and the work that cannot be completed by the CEB be done with the assistance of local councils. Meanwhile, Additional General Manager of the Electricity Board, Rohan Seniviratne, said that a generation plan has been prepared for the next 4 years to achieve the goal of obtaining 70% of the national electricity requirement from renewable energy sources by the year 2030. According to that, between 2023 and 2026, the aim is to obtain 2,500 megawatts of renewable energy, and for that, the goal is to collect that amount through rooftop solar power systems, small hydroelectric power plants and wind power plants, he added. He said solar power systems installed on the roof are a means of obtaining electricity quickly, and currently through 45,000 solar power systems installed on roofs, 700 megawatts is being generated. That concludes local news.
People's Bank Excelsior, a comprehensive banking services package with a branded checkbook as well as debit and credit card exclusively for you. People's Bank Excelsior, for professionals who dare to dream.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
The United States officially handed over 9,300 tons of urea fertilizer to the Agriculture Ministry to distribute among 193,000 smallholder paddy farmers in Jaffna, Mullaitivu, Mana, Vavuniya, Anuradhapura, Trincomalee, Batticaloa and the Monoragala districts. The fertilizer procured by the FAO with funding from the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, is the first shipment of USAID-supported fertilizer assistance, with additional supplies anticipated in the coming months. This fertilizer provided by the American people will help Sri Lankan farmers to keep countless Sri Lankan families fed in the months ahead, and came to you in the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Watch Life is brought to you by
Celebrate Christmas and New Year with lots of CIB discounts. Valuable gifts with bank discounts till 31st of December. Come to CIB today.
The police media spokesman, Senior Superintendent of Police Nihal Taldua, says that parents should pay attention on preventing children taking drugs. There is a subtle program to encourage children to take drugs. The parents should be vigilant on behavioral changes in children and their associates. He further pointed out the tendency of drug addiction has been identified due to the giving of excessive amounts of money to children. That came to you in Watchlight.
Celebrate Christmas and New Year with lots of CIB discounts. Valuable gifts with bank discounts till 31st of December. Come to CIB today.
World News. Brought to you by courtesy of...
We give you the strength to rise higher and higher.
Never step back, but always march forward.
Empowering you to reach greater heights. People's Leasing, the trusted leader.
Making headlines this morning, Putin says nuclear risk is rising, but Russia would not use its nuclear weapons first. Spanish train collision outside Barcelona injures over 155 people. And a 100 million-year-old plesiosaur fossil was found in Australia. Vladimir Putin has said the threat of a nuclear war was rising, but insisted Russia had not gone mad and would not use its nuclear weapons first. The Russian president insisted that his country would use only weapons of mass destruction in response to an attack. Speaking at Russia's annual Human Rights Council meeting, he also said the war in Ukraine could be a lengthy process. Western officials believe Putin initially planned for a rapid victory. Russia's capacity to use nuclear weapons has come under increased scrutiny since it invaded Ukraine in February. At least 155 people have been injured after two trains collided on the outskirts of Barcelona, emergency services have said. The crash, which occurred around 7:50 or 6:50 GMT, took place at a station in Spain's northeastern Catalonia region. Local media reported that the trains had been travelling in the same direction and collided while one was parked at the station. The Catalan police are investigating how the incident occurred. A 100-million-year-old plesiosaur fossil has been found by a group of friends in the Australian outback. Scientists say the complete fossil is a rare and exciting discovery. Back to the headlines of the world news. Putin says nuclear risk is rising, but Russia would not use its nuclear weapons first. Spanish train collision outside Barcelona injures over 155 people. And a 100-million-year-old plesiosaur fossil was found in Australia. That concludes this bulletin of world news.
World News. Brought to you by courtesy of...
Amidst all challenges, we will rally around you and advance.
In the face of hardships, let's stand strong together.
Empowering you to reach greater heights. People's Leasing, the trusted leader.
On to development news. The Galle Harbour is to be developed as a tourist harbour. Minister Ramesh Patirana says the action has been taken to construct a new breakwater. A feasibility study is being conducted to explore the possibility of deepening and expanding the harbour. Approximately $175 billion is needed for the project. He says that 3 investors have already expressed their willingness to invest. That came to in development news and on to sports. Zimbabwe Cricket have announced their first privately owned franchise league, a T10 tournament, which has been established with Malk International, the founding company of the Abu Dhabi T10. The 6-team tournament is slated to take place in March 2023 and will be called the Zim Afro T10. The Abu Dhabi T10 has been played since 2017 and has just completed its 6th season. ZC is hopeful that the tournament will attract top players from around the world. The competition boasted 20 foreign names, including Chris Gayle and Sean Tate. The Kandy Falcons won the 4th match of the Lanka Premier League played in Suryaveva yesterday against the Galle Gladiators by 5 wickets, with 30 balls remaining. Batting first, the Galle Gladiators scored 121 runs for 8 wickets. The Kandy Falcons passed the victory target for 5 wickets in 15 overs. That's sports news. We take a look at business news next.
The fastest way to earn the highest interest. An interest rate of 22% in 4 months. NSB, the safest place for your money.
Business News. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money.
The Colombo stock market remained bullish, including continuous net foreign inflow. The active S&P SL20 index gained by 0.93% and the benchmark ASPI by 0.43% yesterday. Turnover was 3.1 billion, involving 149.76 million shares. Foreigners recorded a net inflow of 928.3 million rupees, with Expo Lanka Holdings seeing most net buying worth 446.8 million rupees, while selling topped in BIL at 7.8 million rupees. That's business news. Economic news up next.
Business News. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money.
The fastest way to earn the highest interest. An interest rate of 22% in 4 months. NSB, the safest place for your money.
Economic news.
The Asian Development Bank Vice President Shixin Shen met with President Ranil Wickremesinghe recently and discussed future assistance. The ADB Vice President acknowledged the steps being taken to contain the crisis and address its underlying causes and supported the efforts to seek international assistance. Shen briefed President Wickremesinghe on the ADB's emergency response to the crisis, especially in addressing immediate needs such as essential medical supplies, materials for water treatment, fertilizer and working capital for small and medium-sized enterprises. That's economic news.
LOLC Finance is taking the power of innovation to the next level, winning 5 golds at the Technovation Awards 2022, leading the digital revolution with cutting-edge interbanking digital payments. LOLC Finance claims the overall gold award, whilst also claiming an extraordinary victory in digital banking. LOLC Finance will continue to innovate with the next generation digitalization of financial services, delivering a superior customer experience.
On to the weather report. The Met Department says the deep depression over the southeast Bay of Bengal, 370 kilometers east of Trincomalee, has concentrated into a cyclonic storm, Mandus, located near latitude 9.2 and longitude 84.6 at 23:30 hours yesterday. It is very likely to move west-northwestwards and cross North Tamil Nadu, Puducherry and South Andhra Pradesh coast over the southwest Bay of Bengal around night hours tomorrow. Cloudy skies will prevail over most parts of the island. Showers will occur at times in the northern, north-central and eastern provinces, and heavy rainfall above 100 millimeters can be expected at some places in the northern province and the Trincomalee district. Strong winds about 50 to 60 kilometers per hour can be expected at times over the northern, north-central and eastern provinces. A few showers may occur in the western province and in the Gaul and Matara districts. To conclude this bulletin of news, a recap of the headlines. The vote on the third reading of the appropriation bill will be held today. An injunction order was issued preventing the holding of demonstrations near Parliament. Sri Lanka scraps COVID vaccination negative test requirement on overseas arrivals. Sri Lanka and Singapore discuss early implementation of the Free Trade Agreement. The CEB to issue paperless bills receipts from January 2023. A 4-year plan to generate 70% of the national electricity requirement from renewable energy. The US hands over 9,300 tons of urea fertilizer to be distributed among 193,000 smallholder paddy farmers. Putin says nuclear risk is rising, but Russia will not use its nuclear weapons first. And Zimbabwe cricket launches 6-team T10 tournament in March 2023. With that, we conclude this morning's news broadcast.